Hey guys, tonight we journey to a high mountain village where the only thing standing between you and a 500-meter freefall is a suspension bridge, handwoven from grass. Welcome to daily life in an Inca rope bridge village. Mist curls off the cliffs like breath from a sleeping giant. The air is so thin up here, you feel it tug at your chest every time you inhale. You're lying on a woven mat inside a stone hut with a thatched roof, the kind that leaks just enough to remind you it's real. A guinea pig squeaks from under your sleeping blanket. You have no idea if it's a pet or tomorrow's lunch. Probably both. Outside, the sound of the river thundering far below has been your lullaby and your alarm clock for as long as you can remember. You sit up and wince, your shoulders ache from yesterday's bridge tightening shift. It's a job so specific, so terrifying, that modern engineers still send people here to learn how your ancestors did it without bolts, steel, or a single nail. You rise and wrap yourself in a thick poncho dyed with crushed cochineal beetles. The colors are earthy, deep, like dried blood and moss. A pair of old sandals waits for you at the door, worn smooth by years of gripping cliff trails that have zero margin for error. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I love seeing the sleepy map grow. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sun hasn't crested the peaks yet, but the village is already humming. You trudge out into the chilly dawn and stretch. All around you are homes clinging to steep slopes, fields terraced like giant staircases carved into the living rock. Smoke curls from a few cooking fires. Somewhere a pan flute plays, a tune as old as the condors circling high above. Your first job of the day? Checking the bridge. This isn't just a bridge. This is the bridge, your village's reason for existing. It links two mountain ridges, swaying over a gorge so deep, the river below looks like a cracked thread of silver. Every year, your entire community rebuilds it by hand. The whole process takes 3 days of weaving, braiding, and singing. You remember being a kid, twisting ichu grass into cords until your fingers blistered. And even now, you still get nervous before stepping onto it. Not because it's unsafe, Inca engineers weren't amateurs, but because, well, the bridge breathes, it creaks. It hums. It reacts to your weight like a living thing. And sometimes, in the fog, it disappears entirely from view. You grab a coil of fresh rope and join your uncle at the edge of the span. He's already halfway into a rant about how you can always tell the bridge needs tightening when the dogs start refusing to cross. You nod sagely, like you've heard it for the first time. Together, you crouch at the anchoring post, tightening one of the main suspension bundles. Each rope is about the thickness of your wrist, braided from smaller strands until it's strong enough to hold warriors, llamas, and messengers sprinting at full speed. The smell of wet grass and old sweat lingers in the fibers. As you work, a hawk passes overhead. Your uncle mutters something under his breath, a blessing or a joke, hard to tell in Quechua. The hawk flies straight when the rope is true, he says with a wink. You smile, though no one's ever proven that proverb wasn't just invented to make kids focus. Historical records do confirm that these bridges, called Huachuca, were vital lifelines of the Inca Empire. They connected provinces, allowed armies to move swiftly, and gave messengers, the chasquis, a path to sprint across the Andes with urgent quipu messages. And yes, they were always rebuilt annually, sometimes with entire villages competing for who could make the best, most beautiful crossing. But historians still argue whether these rope bridges were primarily practical or ceremonial. Some suggest the act of building them wasn't just about transportation, it was a spiritual reaffirmation, a way to braid the community together, literally and symbolically. You feel that, here in the cool dawn light, fingers aching as you tug another length of cord into place. There's a story the elders tell about the bridge. How it has memory. How every person who crosses leaves a piece of themselves behind in its knots. That's why, they say, you should never cross in anger or with a lie in your heart. The bridge might remember, you've never tested it. After an hour of pulling, tying, testing tension with your weight and a few careful hops, your uncle finally says the magic word, good. Which in his dialect means not falling apart today. You both lean back on your heels and admire the view. Sunlight finally spills over the ridge, igniting the mist in glowing gold. The village awakens in full. You hear the call of the day's first Chazka runner, preparing to dash across the bridge and vanish into the trails beyond. Your shift's done, for now. You step back from the ledge, stretch your sore arms, and walk toward the cooking fires. Ahead, a llama brays like a dying accordion. A trader must have arrived early, but we'll get to that in a moment. You follow the sound of hooves and hollow bells down the slope toward the village plaza, really just a flat patch of dirt shaped by feet, rain, and gravity. The air here always smells like damp stone and roasted maize, but now it carries something else too, cinnamon, maybe? Or bark? Some exotic perfume clinging to the fur of animals who've walked for days. A llama caravan has arrived. 4 animals and 2 traders, one of whom is loudly trying to convince the other that the empire should just build an easier trail. The llamas, meanwhile, seem to be arguing amongst themselves in soft snorts and humming complaints. One has colorful tassels tied to its ears, signaling it's a lead pack animal. Another is currently trying to chew on your hair, which you do not appreciate. You shove it gently. It returns the favor with a long, annoyed stare. Llamas hold grudges. The traders have come from Cuzco, the beating heart of the Inca Empire, lugging goods like dried chili, coca leaves, fine textiles, and gossip. So much gossip. The kind that travels faster than even the Chaskis can run. You crouch beside their bundles, half listening as they boast about a new sun temple being polished with river gold, or a priest in the sacred valley who swears he can make water run uphill. You don't believe half of it, but then again, you've seen a potato sprout after being stored in ash for a year. So reality is flexible up here. The traders unwrap their goods on thick woven cloths. One bundle holds what looks like charred wood, but the smell tells you otherwise. Cinnamon bark, a luxury from the lowlands. It's traded ounce by ounce, and worth more than some warriors earn in a season. You remember a fringe tale told by your cousin, that the emperor once sent a runner to get cinnamon for his tea, and the poor guy returned 6 weeks later, covered in leech bites, missing 3 toenails, and claiming the forest had spoken his name. You're not sure if that's true, but you know better than to laugh out loud. Some stories have long legs and sharper ears. The traders hand out samples to elders and scribes. Not money, there's no coin in your village, but gifts and service. In return, they'll sleep here, get their llamas fed, and move on at dawn, probably with a few knotted quipus to deliver along the way. One of the traders gestures to a scar above his eye, claiming it's from when he fell off the rope bridge outside Ollantay Tambo. You ask if it was the wind, or maybe spirits. He grins. It was a chicken, he says. I tripped over a chicken and rolled right into the canyon. You don't press further. Historians still argue whether these traders, called Minke merchants, were part of a state-managed supply system or more like semi-sanctioned freelancers. The Inca Empire wasn't exactly capitalist. But neither was it fully centralized in how every potato reached every plate. One of the elders approaches the group now. She's small, wary, and terrifying in the way only old women with total authority can be. She inspects the bundles, not saying a word. You notice the traders straighten up like schoolchildren caught passing notes. She gives a tight nod, then says something in Quechua that loosely translates to "Don't try to sell us spoiled cheese again," and walks away. Your stomach growls. You realize you haven't eaten yet, and a llama just sneezed in your general direction, so it's definitely time to move on. On your way back uphill, you pass a group of kids poking at something with sticks. You lean in. It's a desiccated frog, dressed in dull clothes, lying on a flat stone like it's sunbathing. One kid turns to you and whispers, "It's for luck." You nod solemnly and walk away faster. As you near the cooking fires, the scent of hot chicha, fermented corn beer, greets you. It's warm, sour, and earthy. You accept a gourd bowl and take a sip. Breakfast, You sit cross-legged beside a friend and tear off a piece of tunta, freeze-dried potato that tastes like chalk in defiance. You dip it in a bit of peppery sauce made from ricotta, the local chili that can melt the back of your throat if you're cocky. You are cocky. Your sinuses are now wide open, while you eat. You overhear someone mention an upcoming Kapak Hucha ceremony, an imperial ritual offering to the mountain spirits. No one in the village has been chosen yet, but there's tension in the way people talk about it. These ceremonies are beautiful. And heavy. Sometimes they involve a pilgrimage. Sometimes more. But that's for another time. For now, your meal is interrupted by a sneeze. Not from a llama. From the same elder who just judged the cinnamon. She glares at you, then mutters something about the curse of morning noses and walks away. You're not sure what it means, but your day feels cursed enough already. You scrape the last of your maize mash from the bowl and rise. The bridge held through the night. The traders didn't fall off the cliff. Your hair smells like llama, but that's normal. It's time to lace up your sandals again. There's a quipu message waiting, and you're the runner today. The quipu waits for you at the village center, laid out carefully on a woven reed mat as if it were a coiled serpent in the sun. It doesn't look like much at first glance, just strands of knotted colored strings dangling from a main cord. But you know better. This is language, census, story, debt, tribute, tax, prayer, and warning, all bundled together without ink or paper. You kneel beside it, eyes scanning the rows. Burnt umber for maize harvest, deep blue for water stores, green for alpaca wool taxes. The knots vary in size, twist direction, and spacing. It's not a code you ever learn to read deeply, only the trained Quipukamaics can claim that, but you recognize the pattern that matters. This is a relay message. And you're stop number 1, you stand, brush off your knees, and the village messenger gives you a simple nod. No good luck. No, don't trip. Just the handoff. That's how it's always done. You loop the quipu over your shoulder like a sash and tie the travel bundle tight against your hip. Water gourd, slingshot, pouch of toasted corn kernels, nothing more. Then you face the rope bridge again, still swaying. Still singing its soft, fibrous hum into the canyon wind. You take a breath. Step forward, your sandals press into the braided cords. Your body leans slightly to counter the arc. Each footstep is deliberate, balanced, and oddly rhythmic, like a heartbeat in your soles. The bridge dips. Adjusts, rocks back. One wrong step and you'll be dangling over 400 meters of open air, but you've done this enough that your mind lets go of the fear and sinks into the ritual. Your footfalls make a beat, the wind makes a melody, your breath is percussion. By the time you reach the far side, you've already forgotten your last 4 thoughts. You don't need them now, you need your legs. The path ahead turns narrow, rocky, and vertical, a switchback trail known locally as the Goat's Regret. The Empire's entire communication system relied on runners like you, Chaskies, who worked in relays across vast distances, delivering vital information in hours instead of weeks. These weren't solo heroes, they were a chain. Timed to perfection. Each Chaska ran a leg of the journey, handed off the message, and rested. The system rivaled the speed of horseback messengers. And the Inca had no horses. Historians still argue whether runners were selected by talent, family, or sheer endurance. Some say they were chosen at birth, others that they volunteered for the honor. But every source agrees, Chaskies trained like athletes and ate like monks. You don't feel very athletic right now. You feel like a human lung on legs. You reach the first checkpoint, a small stone hut shaded by a sloping ledge. A teen boy waits there, sharpening a slingshot and chewing coca leaves. He sees you and perks up. Early, he says. You toss him the quipu. Light, you reply. He catches it, untangles a couple strands, and squints. Maize tax. You shrug. Told you. Light. He offers you a handful of coca. You chew gratefully. The bitterness bites first, then your tongue goes comfortably numb. You'll float for the next 20 minutes. You sit on a warm rock outside the hut and watch as a family of viscachas, those plump rabbit chinchilla hybrids, scurry over the cliffside. One stops and stares at you like you owe it money. The boy finishes re-rolling the quipu and disappears down the next trail, vanishing like a shadow swallowed by sunlight. You lay back, stare at the sky, and exhale. You've got 3 more errands before you're off duty. One of them includes finding your cousin, who borrowed your poncho and apparently wandered into the forest chasing a dream about golden frogs. Again, you start back toward the village, legs lighter now. On the way, you pass a group of women pounding maize into flour using stone mortars. The rhythm is mesmerizing. One woman hums an old song, melancholy, slow, and it slides into your bones like smoke into cracks. The path winds past another lookout where a few kids are carving faces into dry gourds. One waves a half-finished one at you. "This is your face," he yells. The gourd is lumpy and angry-looking. You're offended. But he's not wrong. You duck under a low branch, and there it is, your cousin. Shirtless, perched on a rock, talking softly to a mud idol shaped like a frog. "Any luck?" You ask. He grins. It blinked. You sit beside him. The forest around you breathes, branches shifting with the breeze, leaves whispering secrets you're not supposed to understand. You pluck a berry from a bush nearby, roll it between your fingers, and wonder, briefly, whether it's edible. You decide not to find out. A sudden gust makes the treetops sway. Somewhere far above, a hawk cries out. Your cousin stands and says, "We should get back." The sky's starting to frown. You don't argue. The weather up here has moods, and sometimes it forgets to be reasonable. You descend the trail together. Side by side, letting the quiet grow between you until your sandals hit the familiar stone path of the village. The fire's still going. The traders are gone. A llama is sniffing someone's laundry line like it's a buffet. You're home. For now. Later that evening, you sit by the central fire pit, watching the flames twist like dancers caught in a gossip spiral. The day's heat has softened into a gentle warmth, and the wind carries the scent of roasted maize, wood smoke, and that unmistakable tang of wet stone that always seems to follow a sunset in the mountains. Someone's uncle is telling a story again. He's told this one before, at least 10 times, but no one interrupts. In the Andes, repetition isn't laziness, it's preservation. He leans forward, his voice gravelly and slow, and begins spinning his tale of how the moon once fell in love with a condor and offered him a feather made of light. You've heard different endings to this story. In one, the feather burns the world. In another, it turns into a glacier. Tonight, though, the feather becomes a silver fish, and the condor forgets to say thank you. Classic condor. You lean back on your elbows and let the rhythm of the story wash over you. Sparks float upward into the dusk like curious fireflies. You try to count them, then forget what number you were on. That's okay. Counting is for quipus. This is for dreaming. As the story winds down and laughter bubbles around the circle, someone nudges your shoulder. It's Taika, the village's weaver and low-key chaos agent. She jerks her head toward the workshop. "I need you," she whispers. Something's wrong with the tension stone. You groan but follow. Taika's workshop is a marvel of color, skeins of alpaca wool dyed with beetles, flowers, and mystery substances dangle from the rafters like sleepy snakes. A half-finished tunic hangs from a loom, its pattern slowly revealing tiny stepped mountains and jaguar teeth. The tension stone is a simple thing, a rounded river rock used to anchor thread as it spun and wound. But Taika insists it has moods. Today, it's apparently in a bad one. She gestures at the loom. The pattern is off. You squint. She's right. The stepped mountains have started curving, almost waving like corn in wind. You see it? She says, mouth full of coca leaves. Maybe it's trying to become water. You joke, maybe you should sit on it, she snaps. Stabilize the energy. You sit. The pattern settles, Taika mutters, told you. Historians still argue whether weaving among the Inca was purely utilitarian or a coded form of sacred storytelling. We know that certain takapu patterns, those little square glyphs on tunics, could denote status, allegiance, or even office. But some fringe scholars believe they were part of a secret language, one only high priests and master weavers truly understood. You run your fingers along a finished poncho hanging nearby. It smells like wind and old soap. Its pattern shows a condor with spread wings above a lake. You know that lake. It's real. So maybe the feather story isn't nonsense after all. You leave Taika muttering to herself and step outside just as the last light disappears behind the cliffs. The stars here arrive with zero subtlety. 1 minute it's twilight. The next, you're drowning in galaxies. The Milky Way, called Mayu, the celestial river, arches across the sky. Every twist and ripple mirrors an actual river down below. According to the elders, you lie flat on the grass, arms folded under your head, and imagine swimming in that star river. Somewhere up there, they say, is Pachamama's spindle, always turning, always weaving. Maybe she's the one playing with the tension stone. Someone joins you, your younger cousin. Still smelling faintly of frog. He points upward. There, he says. See the 2 llamas? You squint. The constellation looks more like 2 angry dots and a fuzzy smudge. Yep, you lie. He's quiet for a moment, then whispers, when I die, I want to be a cloud. You turn your head. Not a star? No. Stars stay too still. Clouds get to change. You nod slowly. That's fair. A cold breeze whispers across your face. You hear the familiar creak of the bridge ropes in the distance. Always singing. Always waiting. A kind of lullaby for the whole village. A few huts still flicker with firelight. The rest are dark, their families curled into woven blankets stuffed with feathers and dreams. Someone snores like a distressed pan flute. You remember that tomorrow is market day. Villagers from across the cliffs will arrive to trade goods, tell stories, and brag about whose llama has the fluffiest neck. You make a mental note to bring your extra tunic. The one with the stitched condor wing. It might fetch a bundle of dried mango, or maybe a promise from that girl who always wins at slingshot contests. You get up, stretch, and start toward your hut. The grass crunches softly beneath your feet. Your door curtain rustles, and a startled guinea pig makes a noise like a hiccup. Inside, everything smells like sleep, dried herbs, clay, wool, the faint memory of a fire. You curl into your blanket. Listening to the slow pulse of the mountain, the wind, the bridge, the occasional sneeze of a restless llama, you close your eyes and dream of feathers. Morning doesn't so much arrive as it gently insists. A soft gold light trickles through the woven gaps in your hut wall, and the air has that crisp scent of sunlit stone and dewy earth. Somewhere nearby, a bird that sounds like it's been up for hours shouts its opinion of the day into the silence. You blink awake. Stretch. A faint ache hums in your legs from yesterday's bridge run, but it's the good kind, proof you did something difficult and didn't fall into a canyon. Your guinea pig roommate is already rustling around in its straw nest like it's reorganizing for tax season. Outside, the village is beginning its slow, rhythmic unfurling. Smoke curls upward from the cooking huts. A baby cries, gets shushed, cries again. A wooden flute starts up, playing a meandering melody that sounds suspiciously like someone making it up as they go. Probably Poma. He always improvises in the key of confusion. You head down to the riverbank first, like always. The air near the water is cold enough to wake you fully, and the smooth stones along the edge feel like polite ice under your toes. You crouch, cup your hands, and splash your face. The sting clears the cobwebs fast. There's a woman further down the bank scrubbing clothes against a flat stone, her sleeves rolled up to her shoulders. She glances your way and shouts, "Tell your cousin he still owes me a story." You nod. You probably owe her one too. You grab a few river reeds for weaving, Taika's always on the hunt for good ones, and start back up the trail. Today's market day, which means the square will soon be blooming with color, noise, and bartering that somehow always involves at least one person yelling that's a criminal price. At the center of the village, woven mats are already being laid out like checkerboard pieces. People are unpacking baskets of beans, woven bracelets, polished stones, bright feathers, dried fruits, clay whistles, and, of course, several kinds of potatoes, some of which look like they were designed by angry sculptors. You help an elder unload a crate of dried chili peppers. Each one wrinkled like a storyteller's hands. She pats your cheek and mutters something about your posture. You walk like a man with too many secrets. You smile. Or maybe just sore knees. She laughs, then threatens to make you marry her granddaughter. Classic elder move. As the market crowds swell, the air fills with the overlapping buzz of trading. One man insists his gourd bowl was blessed by thunder. Another claims his llama hums lullabies at night. A small child holds up a rock and loudly declares, "This one is magic." You believe him. Your cousin appears again, miraculously clothed, and proudly displays a carved figurine shaped like a frog wearing a crown. You don't even ask. He's already named it King Mud. Historians still argue whether these village markets were purely economic or served larger cultural and spiritual purposes. Trade, after all, wasn't just about goods, it was about stories, alliances, family ties. And every item had a past. The orange dye in that blanket came from cochineal beetles, the obsidian blade was once part of a warrior's kit, the dried fish had been sun-cured 3 valleys away. In the corner of the square, a traveling musician unrolls a panpipe and begins to play. The melody threads through the noise, soft and looping. You sit cross-legged nearby, letting the tune settle into your ribs. Someone hands you a cup of chicha, the fermented corn drink that tastes like sunshine forgot how to behave, and you sip cautiously. Too much and you'll end up reciting poetry to a clay pot again. The music slows. The sun climbs. And suddenly, a hush rolls through the market like a breeze through grass. Everyone turns. A group of strangers has entered the square, 3 traders from the lowlands, their cloaks made of woven palm fibers and their hair wrapped with river shells. They carry baskets filled with fruits you've never seen before, bright orange spheres that smell like flowers and danger. One of them steps forward and speaks in accented Quechua, offering gifts from beyond the jungle. A carved flute. A serpent mask. A folded map drawn on bark. Your village elder steps forward. No words are exchanged yet. Just long, measuring looks. The kind that weigh truth against possibility. Then, the elder nods, and the market exhales. Trade resumes. Carefully, you sidle up to the stranger with the mask and ask, "Does it really work?" He lifts it to his face and hisses. A child screams. He winks. Only on Thursdays. You laugh and trade him a woven bracelet for a strange green fruit. It smells like pepper and sunlight. As the sun begins its descent and shadows lengthen, the crowd thins. Some villagers drift home, their arms heavy with barter winnings. Others linger, telling stories in clumps. You wander the edge of the square, fingers trailing along the rough edges of baskets and the soft loops of llama wool tunics. One mat still holds a little pile of carved birds. You pick one up, a condor mid-swoop, and slide it into your pocket. A souvenir for a day that felt like a dream. The musician packs up. The traders from the jungle fade into the path beyond the cliff. The fire pit glows faintly. And once again, the rope bridge sings in the wind. The next morning, you wake up to the distant thump of drums. It's not the urgent kind. No invasion, no avalanche, no surprise llama uprising. Just the slow, steady pulse of something ceremonial. Rhythmic. Intentional. You sit up, rub your face, and squint toward the source. A group is gathering near the far edge of the village where the cliff trail begins, right at the mouth of the bridge. You throw on your tunic and hurry over, stepping around a small child furiously arguing with a beetle. When you reach the group, you spot Cantu, the bridge keeper, already in full regalia, her woven sash tied in ceremonial spirals, her eyes scanning the horizon with all the serenity of someone who definitely knows more than you. She turns to you, smirks slightly, and says, "You're just in time for the harvest blessing." You blink. "That's today?" "It's always today," she replies, annoyingly cryptic as ever. You're handed a bundle of coca leaves wrapped in woven cloth and nudged into the circle. Around you, others hold offerings too, miniature clay crops, small stones carved with faces, feathers, and even one particularly sincere potato shaped like a heart. A flute begins to play, no melody this time, just a low, repetitive tone like breath echoing through hollow bone. As the sun climbs, the bridge becomes more than a bridge. It's the stage. The altar. The thread between worlds. Kanta steps forward. Raises her hands, and begins a prayer, not shouted, not whispered, but spoken with the weight of stone and river. She names the mountains, the ancestors, the spirits of wind and water and thread. You repeat her words when prompted, your voice joining dozens of others in a chorus older than ink. A bowl of chicha is passed around. You take a sip. It tastes earthy, sacred, and just slightly fermented enough to remind you not to chug. The bowl makes its slow round, then is poured ceremonially at the bridge's edge. One for the people. One for the gods. Historians still argue whether these rituals were formal state functions mandated by the empire or if local variations developed independently in each village. Fringe theories suggest that certain bridge rituals doubled as encoded astronomical calendars, like the tension patterns of the bridge ropes marked seasonal shifts based on subtle vibrations. Sounds unlikely. But then again, your elbow still aches from that time the bridge predicted rain and you didn't listen. After the blessing, the village disperses in different directions. Some head off to harvest the potato terraces, others return to loom work, a few just nap in full daylight like sun-worshipping cats. You follow Kanta back toward her hut, curious. Inside, the walls are lined with coils of spare rope, bundles of dried herbs, and a few skulls, not human, thankfully, but animals, condor, puma, even a jaguar cubs. Symbols of protection. Maybe intimidation. Maybe both. She offers you a seat and starts winding a new rope in silence. Her hands move with practiced fluidity. You watch, trying to absorb her calm. Eventually, she says, "You ever wonder why the bridge sings?" You nod. Of course you have. They say it's the ancestors talking. Each strand holds memory. Each knot tells a story. You ask if it ever tells her secrets. She smiles, doesn't answer. Instead, she hands you a frayed piece of rope. This was part of the last bridge. It feels heavy, despite its small size. Its fibers are soft in places, worn by hundreds of feet. You run your fingers over it and feel something like a pulse. Or maybe that's just your own heartbeat. Later, you wander down to the base of the cliff where the agricultural terraces wrap like ribbons around the slope. The work teams are already there, clearing weeds and digging furrows with long-handled tools shaped like flattened paddles. A few children chase birds through the rows while their parents pretend not to notice. You pitch in, pulling tubers from the earth. One of them looks like a small screaming face. You put it in your pocket for later. Someone nearby is singing, an old work song that loops endlessly, its rhythm matching the motion of digging, lifting, placing. You find yourself humming along without realizing. One of the elders tells you this is Papa Amarilla, the golden potato. Sacred. Versatile. Delicious with salt. He says the original one was a gift from Inti, the sun god, who grew tired of people eating cold rocks. Historians still argue whether that's literal, he adds, then winks. You pause to drink from a communal gourd passed along the row. It tastes like river water filtered through ancient wisdom. After a while, you lie back in the grass, the dirt still under your fingernails, the sun warm on your skin. The village hums below, the bridge sways gently above, and for a moment everything feels still. Balanced. Like the entire mountain is holding its breath with you. and then, from far above, a hawk cries out, sharp and sudden. You sit up. In the distance, a cloud of dust trails down the canyon path. Visitors? Messengers? Someone late to the market? You rise, brush off the dirt, and start walking back. The bridge sings louder now. The dust trail gets closer as you make your way back up the switchback trail toward the village. You squint against the glare of the midday sun, and eventually shapes begin to emerge from the haze, travelers. 4 of them. Their tunics bear the colors of Cusco, the imperial capital, stitched with that specific level of smug precision only city folk seem capable of. They walk with purpose, posture stiff as corn stalks. One of them wears a necklace of silver discs, each etched with tiny animal forms, condors, jaguars, snakes. Another carries a long staff carved with spiraling lines. A third is clearly the youngest and trying way too hard not to trip on his own feet, the last one. The leader, you think, walks like someone who knows the mountain will get out of their way if necessary. They stop just before the entrance to the bridge village and wait. You approach slowly, casually holding a basket of potatoes as if that makes you less threatening. They nod at you. We're looking for the bridge keeper, says the silver necklace one. You glance toward the center of the village, where Kanta stands, watching the scene unfold like she's already 10 steps ahead. She's expecting you, you say. Not a lie. Probably. The visitors are led into the council hut, a structure made of tightly packed mud bricks and roofed with thatch that's seen more dry seasons than most people alive. You aren't invited in, of course, but you linger near the doorway, pretending to inspect a crack in the wall. Classic eavesdropping maneuver. Inside, voices rise and fall, too muffled to make out details. You catch a few words, though: inspection, imperial engineers, and test run. Not ominous at all. Historians still argue whether these kinds of visits were routine maintenance checks or subtle power plays, reminders that even remote villages were under the Empire's gaze. Some fringe theorists suggest they were more like rituals themselves, part bureaucratic, part spiritual. The Empire loved blending politics with performance. Later that evening, you find yourself sitting with a few others at the cliff's edge. Staring at the Qswachaka Bridge, the woven lifeline of the village, stretching across the gorge like the universe's own tightrope, the engineers have begun their work, measuring tension, checking anchor stones, inspecting knots. One of them mutters that the western side has too much give. Another says the grass rope is showing signs of age. Kanta stands nearby, arms crossed, saying absolutely nothing and somehow still winning the argument. You watch as they uncoil lengths of fresh rope. The scent of Ichu grass, sun-dried, sharp, almost minty, fills the air as strands are laid out and braided by hand. You join in, weaving with others in slow rhythm. Over, under, twist. Over, under, twist. It's like music for your fingers. An elder beside you hums a tune to keep the rhythm steady. It's wordless but full of history. The bridge is more than a structure. It's a calendar, a lifeline, a living record. Each year, a new one is woven by hand, replacing the old. That cycle, the old unraveling, the new rising, is sacred. When the final knot is tied, it's like threading yourself back into the world. One traveler from Cusco approaches and asks, "What if we built something permanent? Stone. With supports." Kanta replies without turning, "Then you'd stop listening to it." That silences him for a while. As night creeps in, torches are lit, casting golden light over the braided ropes. A test run is scheduled for the next day, and volunteers are needed. You already know you'll be one of them. Back at your hut, you lie down on your woven mat, still smelling of grass and sweat and smoke. You stare up at the ceiling, the shadow of your guinea pig darting across the floor. Your cousin pokes his head in. "Did you hear? They're bringing a Kipu reader." You sit up. "Seriously?" He nods. "From the archives near Lake Titicaca. Says he can read death dates from not tension alone." Historians still argue whether Kipu readers were actual archivists, mystics, or both. The Kipu, the knotted string records of the Inca, were used for accounting, census records, maybe even poetry. Some say there were Quipikamaics who could read the stories in them like others read scrolls. You wonder what this reader will find in your village's records. Harvest numbers? Births? That one time a llama bit the priest. Sleep comes slowly, tugging at you like an old friend. Outside, the wind hums through the bridge. You think you hear voices in it, soft, layered, maybe even laughing. You dream of knots, endless, spiraling knots, and voices wrapped in twine. The bridge sings louder. Tomorrow, it will test you. Morning arrives with a hush, not the usual chorus of roosters, not the clang of pots or the gossip of neighbors starting their daily routines, just the low murmur of anticipation, like the mountain itself is holding its breath. You rise, stretch your arms, and feel the tight pull of yesterday's braiding work still in your shoulders. It's a good ache. An earned one. The entire village is awake already. They're gathered in quiet clusters, watching the bridge like it might come alive. And in a way, it has. Last night, the final knots were sealed. A whole new Qswachaka now stretches across the gorge, tighter, shinier, and just slightly greener than before. It glistens a bit with dew. The rope's still drinking in the dawn. You're one of the first chosen to test it, not because you're the bravest. Not because you volunteered, you definitely didn't. But because the elders say it's your time. Which sounds spiritual, ceremonial. And also suspiciously like we drew your name from a gourd. They smear a line of red clay across your forehead. Blessings are whispered into your ears. Kanta ties a small woven charm around your wrist, a braid within a braid, soaked in river water and sun-dried. Then you're led to the edge. You don't look down, not yet. Instead, you step onto the first plank, your feet adjusting to the slight give of the new ropes. The bridge creaks. Then settles beneath you like a giant exhaling. And you take another step. And another. Each rope strand was twisted from dozens of ichu grass bundles, pounded soft, dried in the sun, then soaked again before being woven tight. 4 main cables support the walkway, 2 more act as handrails, and smaller lashings bind the floor planks at just the right intervals. It's not pretty. But it's real. And somehow it works. Below, the Apurimac River rushes over rocks, carving centuries into stone. It's loud. Cold. A reminder of the cost of failure. You try not to dwell on that. Instead, you focus on the sound the bridge makes. It hums. Each footstep sets off a vibration, like walking across a harp strung between mountains. You keep your step steady, your breath shallow, your mind quiet. Halfway across, you pause. There's wind. The cables sway. For a moment, the whole world feels unsteady. You look up, and realize you're not alone. A hawk circles overhead. Far across the gorge, a woman watches from a shadowed rock. It takes a second to realize it's just a shepherd, her flock barely visible behind her. Still, her presence feels weighty. Like a witness. Or a judge. You take the last steps without incident. When your feet hit solid ground, there's a cheer behind you, soft, respectful, and relieved. Others follow in your path. Kanta crosses last, of course, as is tradition. She walks slow and casual. Like she's taking a stroll through a cornfield, not dangling hundreds of feet above a violent river. Once she reaches the other side, she smiles, lifts the woven charm from her wrist, and ties it to the first post on this end of the bridge. A blessing. A record. By midday, the Cusco engineers declare the bridge safe. They even cross it themselves, tightly clenching the ropes, not that anyone mocks them. Much. One of them nearly faints halfway. You file that away for later teasing, but this isn't just about the bridge. The Kipu reader arrives late afternoon, carried in a sling between 2 runners who look like they've had a very long day. The reader is older than anyone you've seen, his face like wrinkled leather. His fingers long and stained with years of fiber. He doesn't speak for a while. Just sits near the central fire and lays out his bundles of colored cords. People gather. They bring offerings. A gourd of fermented corn. A carved stone with strange glyphs. A tiny flute that only plays 2 notes, both annoying. The Quipu reader finally speaks, "Show me the village's cord." Kanta hands it over, a thick, branching bundle of knots and threads in every color you can imagine. Some strands are frayed. Others still smell like alpaca oil. The reader touches them like greeting old friends. He begins to speak softly as he traces the knots. This was a good potato year. There were 4 new births. 2 deaths, both gentle. And 1 animal trade that was wildly unfair. Someone swapped a healthy llama for a clay jar and a hug. People laugh. That story's been passed around for years, but then he frowns. He lifts a short, faded strand. This one doesn't belong. The village falls quiet. He doesn't explain. Just unties the knot, breathes on it, and says, "Sometimes, the past ties itself in error." Historians still argue whether these acts were genuine history readings or something more performative. Some claim the best Quipu readers could feel time in their fingertips. Others say they were just extremely good at math and gossip. As dusk falls, fires are lit around the village. The new bridge is officially woven, tested, blessed, and recorded. The empire is pleased. The people are safe. The record is intact, more or less. You sit with your cousin, sharing roasted corn and watching sparks rise into the purple sky. The bridge sways slightly in the breeze, a perfect silhouette against the fading light, and it sings again, but this time, you hum along. You wake before the sun the next morning, not because someone called you, but because your dreams dissolved into that strange pre-dawn stillness only mountains know how to keep. It's cold. Not freezing, but just enough to bite your toes as you slip on your worn sandals and push open the reed curtain of your hut. Outside, the air is silver, thin and dry, tinged with smoke from someone's breakfast fire. You don't go to the fields. You don't fetch water. Today is a market day, twice a moon cycle. Traders from nearby villages, and even far-flung outposts, make their way across the rope bridge to exchange goods, news, and, more importantly, gossip. The bridge becomes a lifeline not just for travel, but for curiosity. If empire roads were arteries, this village is a capillary pulsing quietly with all the weird, wonderful stuff people carry. You help lay out the stalls. Woven mats are rolled out, pottery arranged, salted guinea pig meat displayed in neat little rows like grotesque finger food. There's a spot for dried fish, somehow still smelly despite being a week's walk from any body of water. A trader from the jungle sets down a crate of coca leaves wrapped in banana fiber. A crowd forms instantly. You try to pretend you're too mature to care, but when someone offers you a small jaguar tooth carved into a whistle, you're deeply tempted. Too bad your entire net worth currently consists of 2 sweet potatoes and a feather. The sun crests the ridge, lighting up the valley in a burst of orange and gold. The bridge groans slightly with early travelers. On the other side, 2 women haul sacks of quinoa while gossiping loudly about a birth that involved too much singing and not enough water. You hear this and nod. Classic. One of the Cusco engineers lingers near the market, clearly off-duty but trying very hard to act like he belongs. He picks up a clay flute and blows into it sideways. It squeals like an annoyed alpaca. He blushes. You pretend not to notice. Kind of. Suddenly, the hum of the market is broken by a strange sound, deep, rhythmic, and unmistakably metallic. A drum? No. It's footsteps. Many of them. And not the soft sandals of locals. These are harder. Heavier. A delegation is arriving, led by a runner wearing a striped sash and carrying a scroll tied in crimson thread. They cross the bridge with reverent caution. Behind them, a litter carried by 4 men, and within it, a noblewoman of some significance, judging by her feathered headdress and the fact that she's being fanned with condor feathers despite the morning chill. She disembarks, slowly, like a cat testing the floor for lava. Kanta meets her with a small bow. You can't hear the conversation, but there's hand gesturing, a lot of slow nodding, and a brief, mysterious exchange of objects. possibly coca leaves or possibly. Based on how casually it happens, state secrets, turns out the noblewoman is here for a ritual crossing, one meant to symbolize harmony between the empire and the rural nodes that support it. This is something scholars debate intensely. Some say it was political theater, others insist it was deeply spiritual. A few fringe theorists argue it was neither and merely a way to get out of bureaucratic paperwork by walking across a death trap in heels. Preparations begin immediately. Musicians are summoned. A man with more earrings than common sense starts painting glyphs on large river stones near the bridge's mouth. Young girls gather herbs and flower petals, which they'll scatter ahead of the noblewoman as she walks, very slowly, across the newly woven Qswachaka. You, for reasons still unclear to you, are asked to help hold a pole supporting a canopy of dyed fabric above her head. You agree. Of course you do. You're not stupid. When the ceremony starts, it's like the mountain exhales. Flutes echo off the cliffs, their notes warped slightly by the wind. A conch shell sounds, low and trembling. Drums join in, soft at first, then steady. The noblewoman walks. Behind her, elders from the village walk in procession. You feel the strain in your arms from holding the pole, but the silence from the crowd makes the moment strangely surreal. Even the river below seems to hush, halfway across the bridge. She stops, the wind picks up. The canopy ripples like a sail. You tighten your grip. She looks down, not at the river, but at the ropes beneath her feet. Then back at the village. Then forward, and she smiles, a real one. You wonder what she's thinking. Maybe about the absurdity of trusting hundreds of grass fibers to hold her royal dignity aloft. Maybe about how the empire survives not just on conquest, but on trust, thin, fibrous trust. When she reaches the other side, there's applause. The musicians burst into a faster tune, and flower petals swirl in the air like technicolor snow. You set down the pole and stretch your arms, unsure whether you just participated in politics, religion, or performance art, probably all three. That night, the market glows with torches. The village buzzes with songs and stories. Someone brews a thick, frothy chicha and passes it around liberally. You sip, cough, sip again. It grows on you. Kind of like llama milk. If llama milk was slightly alcoholic and probably illegal, the noblewoman dances, surprisingly well. The engineer plays the terrible flute again. You cringe, but only slightly. It's been a good day. As you fall asleep in your hut, you think about the bridge, the ceremony, and the canopy of fabric now folded neatly beside your door. You dream of feathers and knots, and the steady thrum of braided grass beneath your feet. The next morning arrives with that particularly smug kind of silence that only follows a big celebration. Even the birds seem hungover. The firewood crackles a little softer. You blink at the ceiling of your hut, trying to piece together if the dream about the engineer dancing with a llama actually happened or if it was just the chicha. Outside, everything smells like ashes and leftover joy. You rise slowly, stretching out muscles you didn't know had opinions. There's no rush today. The bridge is built. The market's over. The noblewoman has vanished back to whatever feathered world she came from. And the village? Well, the village now settles into that sweet in-between time, maintenance time. You wander out into the morning light, and almost immediately, someone tosses you a coil of rope. Kanta grins. Time to check the slack, she says. You sigh, but it's a theatrical sigh. The kind of sigh that means you don't really mind. The Qswachaka may be newly woven, but like a fresh pair of shoes, or a particularly dramatic cat, it needs to be broken in. Adjusted. Rebalanced. The ropes stretch just slightly after their first full use, and today's task is simple: walk, measure, tighten. But nothing is ever just that. As you and a few others approach the bridge, Kanta hands you a small pouch of clay powder. For the tension marks, she explains. You dust it across specific anchor points where the ropes pass through stone fixtures carved centuries ago, each one aligned perfectly to the sun's path at the solstice. You've never questioned that. You probably should. The bridge feels different today. Not bad. Just lived in. Like it remembers the weight of the noblewoman, the laughter of the market, and the clumsy engineer still recovering from a flute-related ego bruise. As you tighten the ropes, you find small offerings tucked in the crevices, a braided bracelet, a pebble with a heart scratched into it, even a slice of dried fish, questionably placed but undeniably sincere. Historians still argue whether these bridge offerings were devotional, symbolic, or just extremely specific pranks. You carefully remove each one, placing them in a little satchel Kanta carries. She calls it the pouch of weird. It's almost full. The tensioning process involves clever counterweights, rocks, poles, and a few suspiciously enthusiastic llamas. They don't do much. They just stand there, looking smug. Midday brings the kind of heat that turns ropework into sweat work. You pause for water, catching sight of a child walking the bridge alone, carefully, arms out, step by step like a tightrope walker. You hold your breath. Kanta watches too, and then, halfway across, he drops something, a dull woven grass, shaped like a monkey, its arms still looped in a tiny climbing pose. Without a second thought, he kneels. Reaches, everyone watching winces, and then he grabs it. Stands. Continues walking like nothing happened. You exhale. Kanta nods approvingly. Bridge loves a bold heart, she murmurs. Later that afternoon, the elders call a gathering, not formal, but important. Everyone circles up beneath the shade of the meeting tree, and bowls of roasted maize are passed around. A younger woman stands to speak. She's not from this village originally, she came here seasons ago from a coastal town. Her Quechua is still tinged with the rhythms of sea wind. She talks about the storms, how floods have made certain rope bridges unpassable. About a new idea, a double bridge, 2 sets of ropes, one above, one below. Redundant support. Safer crossings during the monsoon months. More stability for cargo. Possibly, just possibly, the future of Inca rope travel. The idea is bold. Some scoff. Others nod thoughtfully. A few simply chew maize like it's none of their business, but also absolutely their business. You look at Cantu. She raises an eyebrow. Says nothing. That night, the stars seem sharper. Closer, you lie on your back, watching them spin slowly above the black silhouette of the bridge. You wonder what future people might think of this place. Would they call it primitive? Ingenious? Would they rebuild these bridges someday, for tourists? For ceremony? For memory? Fringe archaeologists today still debate whether certain surviving bridge remnants point to lost techniques, woven geometry we no longer understand. One theory even suggests there was a way to make the ropes sing, like instruments, humming specific tones as travelers walked. Sounds like nonsense. But also, sounds exactly like something Cantu would know and not tell you just to mess with your head. You hear footsteps. Kanta sits beside you, silent for a while. Then, next year, you'll lead the braiding. You turn to her, startled. What? She shrugs. You've got the hands. And the heart. And you haven't died yet. High praise. In this village, you don't answer right away. Just watch a shooting star scratch across the night. You don't feel ready. But then again, nobody ever does, especially not when standing at the edge of a gorge, holding a rope, and hoping the past was woven tight enough to carry you forward. Morning light creeps into your hut like a lazy cat, brushing across your face and tugging you gently from sleep. There's a chill in the air again, not harsh, just insistent, like the mountain reminding you it's still in charge. You sit up slowly, your legs still sore from yesterday's bridge maintenance. Outside, the village is quieter than usual. Not silent, just slow. The bridge is done. The noblewoman's gone. The market's packed away, and for the first time in what feels like weeks, there's nothing urgent screaming for your attention. You could just rest, you almost do, but Cantu appears, naturally, with a bundle of tools and a grin that spells doom for your plans, storage maintenance. She says, "Time to inspect the anchorage chambers." You groan. Of course it's the anchorage chambers. Behind each end of the bridge lies a series of small stone structures, part vault, part shrine, part emergency supply cache. Inside are spare ropes, ceremonial feathers, sealed gourds of gluey resin, and bundles of braided grass so old they might predate your grandparents. Some say there are secrets in there, too. Hidden scrolls. Coded knot strings. Even, according to one persistent kid, a mummified condor wearing earrings. You doubt it. Mostly, you follow Cantu toward the eastern side. The anchorage sits tucked into the cliff, half shadowed by a spiny cactus bush and guarded by two sleepy dogs who pretend to care. The air inside is cool and dry, dusty in that ancient, sacred way that makes you want to whisper even if nobody told you to. You spend hours unpacking, checking rope tension, testing knots, examining where old meets new. The storage is well organized in a chaotic genius sort of way. One shelf holds ropes by decade. Another shelf holds bones. Bird bones. Carved and labeled. You give Cantu a questioning look. She shrugs. Music experiments, she says. Don't ask. You ask anyway. Turns out, one of her cousins, now long gone, believed that hollow bird bones could be woven into the bridge for symphonic resonance. In other words, making the bridge sing. Again, historians still argue whether the Incas ever intentionally tuned bridges for acoustic purposes or if they simply creaked coincidentally. But the idea keeps fluttering around like a moth that refuses to leave the lantern. As you work, you find a bundle of quipu, those intricate knotted strings used for record keeping. They hang from a wooden peg like some ancient bead curtain. The knots vary in size, direction, spacing. You squint at them, trying to make sense of it all. One knot reminds you of the time Cantu tripped into a barrel of fermented potatoes. Another looks suspiciously like your dog. Quipu are a mystery. A few modern scholars claim to have cracked the code. Others say we're still mostly guessing. One fringe theory insists the knots also stored music. Another says they stored recipes. You believe both. Why not? You run your fingers over the fibers, wondering what messages they hold. War statistics. Crop yields. Love letters. Then you find a small pouch behind the quipu. Inside, a handful of obsidian shards, polished and wrapped in alpaca hide. Strange. Obsidian doesn't come from around here. It's volcanic. Imported. Someone went far to get these. You hold up one shard, turning it in the light. Razor thin. Reflective. It almost hums in your fingers. Tools for cutting rope, Cantu says, seeing your expression. In emergencies. Or revenge, you mutter. She laughs. Only if someone messes up the braiding. You stash it back carefully. The afternoon drifts by. The dogs outside snore. One of them dreams, twitching in its sleep like it's chasing something, hopefully not you. After lunch, you head to the western anchorage. This one is older. The stones are more weathered, and the shelves creak with a wisdom that smells like damp fiber and peppercorns. You find a strange item here, a woven mask shaped like a bird's face, complete with eye holes and beak. You lift it gently, unsure whether to laugh or bow. Ceremonial, Cantu says behind you. Or terrifying. Maybe both. She explains that once a year, a festival would be held honoring Apis, the mountain spirits. People wore masks representing animals, ancestors, or dreams. The bridge was part of the ritual. Each crossing symbolized a journey between worlds, life to death, earth to sky, village to empire. You imagine the night, villagers in feathers, faces painted, dancing across the swaying bridge under moonlight. Music pulsing. Drums pounding. The ropes alive with motion and purpose. You wonder if it's all true or just a tale spun for children, or tired workers. historians still debate whether these bridge rituals were widespread or just localized expressions of belief. Some claim they were rare. Others say they were constant. A few even suggest the bridge itself was a deity, not just a tool. You return the mask, feeling suddenly reverent, evening falls softly, like an extra blanket. The work is done. The anchorage chambers are locked, sealed with their carved stones and their silent, ancient watchfulness. As you walk back to the village, the sky bursts into that kind of sunset that makes you forget every chore, every ache. Pink like crushed berries, gold like spun thread, blue like the deep belly of a lake. And right in the center, silhouetted against it all, the bridge, your bridge. You don't smile. That would feel like tempting fate. But you walk a little taller, and when Kanta claps you on the back and says, "Not bad, ropehead," you don't even roll your eyes. You wake to the sound of humming, low, steady, somewhere between a lullaby and a warning. For a groggy second, you think the bridge is singing again. You sit up, heart thumping, only to find Cantu outside, grinding maize with an enthusiasm that feels suspicious this early. She glances over her shoulder. Big day. You blink. It's always a big day with you. She grins. Today, we climb. Ah. Of course, every few weeks, a team from the village hikes up the steep cliffs overlooking the bridge to inspect the overhead pulleys, small, ancient mechanisms embedded into the rock, once used to haul loads across the gorge without foot traffic. They're mostly ceremonial now, but they still exist. And someone, namely, you, has to make sure they haven't been swallowed by moss or time. You pack quickly, a water skin, dried corn cakes, a spool of thread, you never know, and your most comfortable sandals, comfortable meaning less blister-inducing, which is really the best you can ask for in Inca footwear. The climb is steep, merciless, and weirdly personal. The kind that makes your calves insult your ancestors. It zigzags up the cliff face, winding past outcroppings of aloe and shrubs that look like they might bite if provoked. You pause halfway, panting, only to spot Cantu above you, waving cheerily like she hasn't aged a day since the last climb. She tosses down a peanut. It bounces off your forehead. For strength. Keep your peanuts, you wheeze. At last, you reach the first pulley shrine, carved directly into the rock face. There's no machinery in the modern sense, just grooves, axles of smoothed wood, and what looks suspiciously like a fossilized iguana tucked in the corner. The pulley's still intact. You run your hand along the rope, taut and weathered, feeling for frays. Nearby, you find something odd, a tiny carved figurine, a llama, maybe? No, not quite. It has wings. You show Cantu. She frowns. That's not ours. Not Inca? She shakes her head. Maybe from the Amazon. Or older. Much older. Fringe archaeologists have long argued that Andean pulley systems were built atop even older technology. Perhaps by cultures we no longer name. The truth? Still debated. Some call it myth. Others point to carvings like this. You place the winged creature gently back where you found it. For luck. Or for fear. Further up, a gust of wind nearly knocks you sideways, but you keep moving. The second pulley point is newer, built within your grandparents' time. It's sturdier, boxier, and covered in graffiti. Some of the messages carved into the stone are sweet, names inside hearts, poems about bridges and dreams. Others are less poetic. One simply reads Canta smells. You point it out, rude, she says, but she doesn't deny it. The view from this height is enough to make you dizzy. The entire village spreads out below like a woven rug, tiny dots moving between huts. Llamas grazing lazily, smoke curling up from kitchen fires. And then the bridge itself, a narrow golden thread stretched across the vast blue throat of the gorge. You sit. Breathe. Let the wind comb your hair and your thoughts. Feel old yet? Cantu asks, only in the knees. She tosses you another peanut. You let it bounce off again. Before descending, you both perform the quiet ritual your village has always done at this spot, 3 stones placed in a triangle, 1 for each apu, then a whispered wish into the wind. You don't say yours aloud. No one does. Back down in the village, there's an unexpected guest waiting by the fire pit. A traveling quipu reader, one of the few left who claims to truly understand the knots. He wears a robe stitched with suns and rivers, and his eyes are milky with age, but sharp underneath. He's here to trade stories. Maybe some fish. Cantu introduces you. This one tied half the bridge, she says proudly. You modestly correct her. A quarter. 3/8, she adds. Give or take. The quipu reader chuckles. Then perhaps you'll read this one. He holds out a short strand of knotted string, blue cords, tightly woven, with a curious double knotting pattern you haven't seen before. You run your fingers along it. The knots feel like they tell a weather report, but backwards. Predicting past seasons. You're not sure why, but you know it in your gut. Cool, you murmur. Creepy. True knowledge always is, the reader says. You sit together until sunset, trading tales, about bridges that snapped but didn't fall. About llamas that saved children from floods. About a bridge that once carried a king and a criminal at the same time. No one knows who made it across. Historians still argue whether such stories are history or myth, but in your village, the line's always been fuzzy. That night, back in your hut, you string up a fresh piece of rope. Out of habit. Out of peace, your fingers knot slowly in the dim firelight, echoing ancient rhythms. You don't know what the pattern means yet. But it feels like a beginning. You wake up sore, again. Your back reminds you of every stone you sat on yesterday. Your knees protest like they've joined a labor union. Even your fingertips feel stiff, probably from that last quipu you tied without realizing you'd been gripping the cord like it owed you money, but there's no time for complaints. Today is rope harvest day, you groan audibly. Rope harvest is not the glamorous part of rope bridge life. It's the itchy, sweaty, deceptively exhausting side that smells vaguely of hay, sweat, and stubbornness. Cantu's already outside, naturally. She's wearing her fiber apron, which is just a regular apron but crusted in so many years of frayed grass bits that it could probably walk off on its own. You grab your bundle knife and follow her toward the Chakra, the cultivated plot of land where the special bridge grasses grow. These aren't your average roadside weeds. These are Koya ichu, a hardy, golden grass that grows tall and tough enough to be twisted into life-sustaining cords. Harvesting it is more art than task. You have to cut it low, at just the right angle, without bruising the fibers. Then you dry it under mountain sun, rotating the bundles to avoid mildew. Then you soak it, beat it, dry it again, comb it, twist it, and braid it. And that's just before the real braiding even starts. You and Cantu fall into a rhythm, slice, gather, bundle, repeat. The grass whispers as you work. The wind tugging at loose strands that float like golden feathers. In the distance, a condor circles high, probably judging your technique. Every so often, an elder passes by, muttering evaluations. Too long. Too short. Too slow. One even asks if you're trying to cut crooked. You nod politely and keep slicing. 1 bundle in, and you're already itchy. 2 bundles in, and you've sneezed 8 times. 3 bundles in, and Cantu's telling you a story about someone who once braided a rope so strong it accidentally dragged a llama off a cliff. True story, she says. Mostly. Historians still argue whether those kinds of rope accidents actually happened, or if they were just cautionary tales to keep apprentices humble. Either way, you now picture a confused, airborne llama, and it's not helping your concentration. By midday, your arms are aching. The sun is high. Lunch consists of a shared corn cake and a chicha gourd, fermented maize drink with a tang that wakes you up faster than coffee. Cantu insists this one was made with strawberries. You're skeptical. While chewing, you find yourself watching a young boy learning to twist cordage under an awning nearby. His fingers fumble. The rope unravels. He sighs, tries again. You smile. You were that kid once. Still are, on some days, in the afternoon, the real braiding begins. The village gathers under the long frame set up just for this. It's part loom, part scaffolding, part gossip hub. Children twist cordage under supervision. Teens learn to spin and braid the large sections, sogas, that form the foundation of the bridge. Each soga takes 5 to 10 people to twist properly, depending on the size. You and Kanta take one of the outer lines, joining others in a synchronized twist that feels oddly like dancing, if dancing involved blisters and bark dust up your nose. As you twist, the fibers creak, stretch, and settle. It's oddly satisfying, like each snap of tension is a conversation between past and present. You're not just making rope. You're renewing a sacred technology that held up armies, empires, and the occasional reckless goat. Somewhere nearby, a man sings a slow, rhythmic tune, part work chant, part lullaby. His voice blends with the whistle of the wind and the dull thump of braided coils hitting the ground. The kids start getting silly, as kids do. One of them ties a cord around their waist and pretends to be a llama, trotting around until an elder sighs and sends them off to gather firewood. You don't blame them. Rope harvest day is long. As dusk sets in, the finished cords are laid out like coiled snakes, long, golden, ready. A few get tested by weight, stretched between poles with sandbags. Others get labeled for specific parts of the bridge: side rail, footpath, tension anchor. You pause to admire a particularly smooth braid. The way its pattern shifts gently in the dim light. It looks like honey frozen in motion. Not bad, Kanta says, wiping her forehead with a frayed sleeve. You grin. For amateurs. She throws a clump of grass at you. Later, after dinner, soup, always soup. You and Kanta check the fiber soak barrels, ensuring tomorrow's batches stay damp and pliable. The smell is pungent, herbal, and a bit suspicious. Like a salad gone to war, you finish the day by hanging your tools in the storage alcove and dusting off your hands. There's something satisfying about it all. You didn't fight any wars. You didn't save any nobles. But you made rope. Good rope. Rope that might save someone someday. As the stars blink into view, you lie back on a woven mat, staring up at the sky and wondering how many other rope makers across time have done the same. You imagine some dusty ancestor in another century, scratching their back on a cactus and muttering about blisters, just like you, and it's oddly comforting. Today, you're summoned before the rope keeper's circle, which sounds far more dramatic than it actually is, though there was that one time a cousin showed up late and had to give a speech about knot theory in front of the entire village while standing in llama dung. You haven't let him forget. The circle is simply a group of elders, rope masters, mostly, who meet every moon cycle to check progress, bless upcoming repairs, and argue gently about things like optimal twist tension and whether a triple braid with wet-hardened fiber is cheating. Spoiler, it isn't. Kanta walks with you to the small round hut where they meet. On the way, she warns you, don't let Elder Apiri ask about the tension ratios. He'll talk for 4 hours and you'll forget your own name. You knock politely, 3 times, then once more. The door creaks open. Inside, it smells like cedar, old rope, and a hint of ceremonial coca leaves. Elder Apiri is already mid-rant. You suspect he's been speaking since sunrise. You take a seat on the woven mat in the center. The circle regards you. 7 faces, some crinkled like dried apples, some stern as cracked stone. One of them asks, how many strands in the primary cord? You answer easily. 12. Another, and how many for the lateral supports? 8. Then Apiri pipes up. What is the soul of a rope? This is a trap, of course. You're not supposed to answer. You're supposed to reflect deeply, nod respectfully, and then tell a story, so you do. You speak of the wind that tugged at your first bridge crossing. Of the time Kanta sang to the rope mid-storm. Of that little figurine you found near the pulley shrine, of how some knowledge wraps itself in string, waiting to be unraveled. The circle listens, then they nod, all at once, like a flock of wise birds, and hand you something wrapped in dyed alpaca cloth. You open it carefully. It's an old bridge knot, cut from a previous span decades ago. Blackened by use, but still whole. They've passed it to you. You've been approved to lead the next minor repair. Gulp, no pressure. Later, with the sun high and the river below glittering like molten glass, you stand near the bridge with a small repair crew. Nothing major, just a damaged outer strand near the middle, where the fibers have frayed from repeated foot traffic and llama hooves. Still, you've been given the authority. It's your call. You measure the damaged area, mark the replacements, and begin the methodical unweaving of the broken section. It's like untying history, one knot at a time. As you work, Kanta leans in. You're squinting. I'm concentrating. You're grimacing. That's my concentration face. She shrugs. Looks like indigestion. Still, she helps you feed the new fiber through. And slowly the repair takes shape. A few children watch from the edge of the village, wide-eyed. One is chewing on a sandal. Another is drawing on their arm with charcoal. You ignore them for your own sanity. Once the repair is done, the team tests it, weight checks, pressure tugs, a few bounces. Cantu insists on bouncing. The bridge holds. Of course it does. You find yourself smiling as you run your palm along the finished braid. It feels solid, real. Like trust made tactile. Not bad, says one of the elders, who apparently appeared out of nowhere like some sort of rope-based ninja. You manage not to jump. Barely. Night falls, and the bridge is blessed again with a simple ritual, incense. A whispered chant, a tiny offering tucked into the corner post, a few grains of maize, a feather, and a loop of thread. For safety, for strength, for guidance. Afterward, there's quiet celebration. Not a feast, those are reserved for full rebuilds, but a shared meal of potato stew and quinoa cakes, with a bit of jungle honey drizzled on top. Sweet, earthy, exactly what your soul needed. Kanta raises a cup of chicha. To knots that hold. You raise yours. And blisters that heal. The villagers laugh. Even the quietest among them, old stone-faced Raku, lets out something that sounds like a chuckle. Or a hiccup. Hard to say. Later that evening, while coiling excess fiber for storage, you find a small woven charm tucked into your toolkit. It's shaped like a condor. Probably a child's prank. Or a blessing. Hard to tell which, and maybe it doesn't matter. You tie it to your satchel anyway. As the wind blows over the gorge, the bridge hums faintly again. Not ominous. Not warning. Just present. Like it remembers you now. You lie down on your mat that night, staring at the ceiling beams above your hut, and realize you're already thinking about the next repair. About new chord patterns you want to try. About passing down that blackened knot one day. Rope life sneaks up on you. You're up early again. Not because you have to, today's technically a rest day, but because your brain won't shut up about knots. You step outside, and the mountains greet you like old friends still wearing the same wrinkled robes of mist and sunlight. The bridge lies ahead, stretching across the void, a golden ribbon suspended in song. There's dew clinging to its strands, like silver breath frozen in place. Kanta's already there, of course, swinging gently from one of the tethering ropes like she owns the sky. Morning, she says, mouth full of dried fruit. You wave. You're not quite awake enough to risk full sentences. The village feels calm. A few dogs stretch and yawn beside the cooking huts. Smoke rises from a nearby fire. Someone's hammering something unnecessarily loud, but even that feels gentle in the morning air. You decide to walk the bridge again, this time slowly, deliberately, like a pilgrim retracing their own footsteps. Each step hums beneath your feet. Every strand is familiar now. You know where the knots pull slightly more to the left, where the braided fibers make a musical twang in the wind, where someone once scratched a tiny heart into the side rail. You smile at that. Love and infrastructure, a timeless combination. As you near the center of the bridge, the world drops away around you. Below, the river surges in its endless tumble. Above, the clouds swirl lazily across the mountaintops. You stand there a moment, hands on the cords, the whole world held together by things you've made. And remade. And will make again. Behind you, there's the faint sound of footsteps. A young girl, maybe 6 or 7, is holding her older brother's hand and walking across the bridge for the first time. Her eyes are wide with the kind of joy that only comes from the thrill of doing something just barely safe enough to be allowed. She sees you. You smile. She sticks out her tongue. Fair. As they pass, the boy nods solemnly. You fixed it good. It's a simple sentence, but it sticks. You return to the village slowly, stopping at the storage hut to check on the fiber stocks. There's a fresh batch of ichu drying in the sun. More work, always more. But now it feels sacred. Not burdensome. Not like a chore. Like tending something alive. A few elders are talking nearby. You only catch bits, plans to start reinforcing the eastern support line, talk of bringing in cousins from a neighboring village to teach a different braiding style. They nod at you, and one hands you a small spindle of dyed red thread. You take it carefully, knowing this is more than a color choice. Red is ceremonial. It means you've been noticed, it means they trust you to teach. You suddenly realize just how much you've learned. Not just about rope, though, yes, your knot catalog has expanded dramatically, but about people. Patterns. Patience. You've learned to read the bridge like a language. And to listen to it like a story being told one tension at a time. That evening, a visitor arrives. A traveling poet from the lowlands. He carries no tools, no rope, but in his satchel are dozens of tiny scrolls. He offers to trade one for a story about the bridge. You oblige, naturally. And in return, he recites a verse about a bridge that sings when no one is on it, a spirit suspended between sky and earth, whispering the names of everyone who has ever crossed. You're not sure if he means this bridge. But deep down, you sort of hope so. As night falls, you sit by the fire and begin teaching a group of kids how to start a simple twist braid. They're all fingers and frustration at first, but eventually, they find the rhythm. Over under pull. Over under pull. Like music. Like breath, one child looks up and asks, "What happens if the bridge breaks?" You pause. "Then we fix it." Every time. You nod. Every time. They seem satisfied with that, and so, in the flickering glow of firelight, with your hands wrapped in grass, your head full of knots, and your heart unusually full, you realize something important. Rope bridges aren't just structures. They're memory, and tradition, and stubborn belief that people can hold themselves together, strand by strand, that even across canyons, we can still reach each other. Wind down, 300 words. And now, the bridge is quiet, the night breeze threads softly through the cords, rustling the ends like distant lullabies. The stars peer down, glittering just above the cables, as if to remind you, even the heavens are strung together in patterns. You lie back once more, arms beneath your head, the scent of dried grass still clinging to your fingertips. Your breath slows, sinking with the faint sway of the bridge you know so well. The world rocks gently, not just your body, but your thoughts. They soften, loosen, drift. You think of the ropes. Of how each one starts small, fragile, uneven, incomplete. And how, through care and patience, it becomes strong. Interwoven. Trustworthy. Like you remember the child who asked, "What happens if it breaks?" And your answer still holds, because even if things fray, even if parts fail, there is always the knowing of how to fix what matters. You are a mender now. A keeper of ties. A person who meets the morning with calloused hands and a clear purpose. Let that settle in your chest like warm tea. Let the image of the bridge, a golden arc over twilight water, linger behind your eyes as you exhale slowly, completely. Tonight, nothing is pulling. Nothing is unraveling. Everything is suspended, gently, where it belongs. You are safe. You are needed. You are home, and the bridge holds.